chose this 28 millimeter RPG. Oh, okay. So here's something. Now, just to give you a bit of a background, I started role playing basically 1978. I was, 13 years old. And the first thing that piqued my interest um, in the genre was a thing called Gamma World. It wasn't D&D. I first My first purchase was actually Gamma World, which to me was kind of a confusing thing because me and my friends, we would play a lot of Avalon Hill role play, Avalon Hill war games, I should say, not role playing games. I think there was a role play. I think it was like Rune Quest or something. I can't remember. Um, some Rune something, which was an Avalon Hill SPI game. But we were used to playing those war games, and the way that war games are laid out, they have subsections and sections, subsections, and the basic run of the entire turn as you go through it. So you would have like a movement phase, a combat phase, a attrition phase, or whatever the game was. It had different phases. So you would look under each phase, it would have a section, and then it would have smaller subsections in there to kind of parse out the rules so you understand them fully. And when I got Gamma World, this was a totally alien thing to me because when I opened up the this is off our archive site, just to let you know, I can't remember. I might have the PDF to this actually. But reading the rules here, there's no subsections or anything. It's all it's. I mean, it's got its different areas of looking up the different kinds of rules, kind of what we see nowadays. But when we get to the explanation here of how to use the book here, what it's explaining it here, where one or more of the participants acts as a referee, that was really confusing to me because I'm usually used to side A versus side B. The U.S. versus the Germans, or the British against the Germans, or each player would play one side. This just totally confused me, and I was fortunate to have a buddy of mine, Stacy, who had an older brother whose name was Kelly, and Kelly and his friend Gord. Gord had this really cool old Cougar, uh, like a '69 Cougar. I think it was, yeah, a '68 or a '69. It was a convertible. It was just awesome. That thing just sounded mean. And yeah, it was he loved his cars. But Kelly and Gord kind of introduced us because they were much older than their younger sibling Stacy. Stacy was our age basically, and Kelly explained to us what role playing D&D was, so that I could understand what Gamma World was all about. So he kind of introduced me to D&D, so which was my first foray into uh, playing in the Holmes edition. And so one of the things that kind of confuses me with some of the role players that I see nowadays is they say, well, you got to role play this way. This is how you role play, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I've had my discussions with Shauner and such. So, but the thing is, this is actually the actual D&D rules from the Holmes set, the Holmes edition, which is the blue. It's got the blue cover on it with the dragon on it. And it's basically the very first kind of real edition of D&D. And I did have a few of the old, like the small books I think I had the one called Greyhawk, which was basically a background for the setting, and the other one was Gods and something. That one's worth a lot. I wish I had kept those two because nobody's got them, and they were both original, like the original print with the staples and the half folded paper basically. But now we're getting into some of the what is in an example here of how they role play. So in this example here, you have a dungeon master and you have a caller. So this has been kind of like the standard in the gaming genre at this time. And so you would have one person in the group that would basically say what is happening with the group. Like there would be a discussion with the group together, and they would come up with an idea, and the caller would call it. So it was kind of like whatever that person, the caller, said was basically speaking on behalf of the entire party. And the thing is, when I talk to Shauner, he's like, you don't ask the dungeon master questions, and which perplexes me because as we see here, the caller is asking questions, and that's not the only thing, but he's asking about the doors. How about the doors, and does he hear anything? So the thing the thing about playing in a pure role play method, like for example, what Shauner was talking about, that I've never had a group ever do that, even back in this day, in the late 70s, and I've never had that during the 80s. Never had that during the part of the 90s before I left role playing games and ended up pretty much working all the time. I would work as a floor layer and as a tile setter, and that was my career for about 30 years. And on the weekends, I would play gigs, and I was in a band, and that's why if you hear on some of my videos the intro and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all my own stuff, and so my life wasn't geared to playing role playing games anymore. And then I met my wife, and we got married and all that stuff, and had kids. Finally, when my kids were old enough to be, pretty much, self sufficient, I started picking up role playing games again. And this is where I actually met Sean, or well, uh, lingered in the same areas that Shauner did, but I was known as Magnitude as my name on a lot of forums, and he had very common things that I was interested in, like doing 3D modeling and that sort of thing. So we were he may not remember me at all in any of his, passages in that era, but the only time I ever really talked to Shauner was actually recently on a video he did. So, but he told me about this method of role playing where it was just pure role playing and you didn't ask any questions. But back here, when we go back to the original D&D, this is basically ground zero, besides the little pocket books that came out first. This is how they would role play, so with a caller and everything. And I'll show you the example once again with Gamma World. Same thing here. They are, the caller is asking questions, And it doesn't really give you any participation from any of the extra players except for somebody here. Somebody says this, uh, and yeah. So let me go back to yeah, silly me. I went back to the D&D stuff. So over here, let's go forwards a few pages because it's at the end here where we get the description from Gamma World, which was basically at the same time as um, Holmes edition. And should be just up here. A little bit more. Oh, I went a little too far. So the example of play here. Once again, we have the R for referee and the C for caller. And you also notice that, yeah, the caller is actually asking some questions here to the referee, and asking on behalf of Bolo here if he sees or hears anything. He asks the questions about the skeleton uh, and stuff like that over here. And it's that was part and parcel of the gameplay. So um, when I experienced D&D, it was pretty much we didn't have a caller. We just played as individuals in the party and did what we wanted to do each. So it gave a little bit more participation with the players and the DM or GM or referee, whatever game we were playing back at that time, would answer questions, of course, as we brought them up. So to us, this idea of a pure role playing, that, like I say, that wasn't even thought about back here as far as the gameplay process according to the original books here brings up. So, but it would be cool if I could get into a group that actually did like a full role play kind of thing. But I just can't. I've never encountered a bunch of people that would do that, except for, like I say, Shauner says that he has. So I don't know. I don't know where they came up with the idea. It's a way to play it, and but yeah, I've never. This was what we were introduced to: the caller and the DM. And we would also use, like it says here, they were talking about how to. They said they would use miniatures here if you wanted to, or just just play it kind of freeform. It's entirely up to you. There's no rule saying that no, you're not supposed to use miniatures or whatever. It's a lot of these guys here, including Kelly back then. He had a ton of miniatures. They were all like Rel Partha kind of stuff. And I collected quite a few miniatures and painted them up and stuff. I was terrible at it back then, but it was cool. Would paint things up, and that would be your miniature that you would use in the game. And it wasn't like third edition onwards where every move was counted out. It was basically somebody would draw or have a bunch, like an ashtray show as a dais, and a couple of dominoes for doors, that sort of thing. And that would give us an idea of kind of the layout of what the game master was presenting to us, and we would just move our token miniature over to the spot that we said that we were going to. Basically, it wasn't, oh, you count out so many squares per move and all this stuff. Like you do with D&D nowadays, where it's all on grid, and you adhere to the grid rules that you only move 30 uh 30 feet or whatever. It's nothing like that back then. So it was very, very free form, and the miniatures were only to show the location of your character at the time, just to prevent what we call the meta gaming. So, and that's where, oh, suddenly you're there in the action, but you were actually across the other room, according to what you were saying you were doing before. And because you want to kind of keep to that, adhere to the physicality of what you're imagining, and not everybody's floating around willy-nilly and able to teleport from one spot to the next at a whim. And DMs at that time kind of frowned upon that kind of gameplay. So that was, oh, sorry about that. That's my alarm going off for my supper. And that was the way that we played back then. So this concept of pure role playing came most likely much later. So this is the way that we played. That's the way that we learnt from the books. And that was that. Nothing more. So anyways, so a little bit of food for thought for those out there that are like having the big debate on, do you use miniatures? Should you use miniatures? Should you be fully immersed role playing, or should you have a caller? Should you have the individuals each speaking out about what they're doing? Well, it's entirely up to you. We didn't play with a caller, but if you want to go like pure old school D&D, yeah, you need the DM, you need the caller. Anyways, play how you like to play and have fun. And if the group works with how you play, how you all play, then that's good. If everybody's having fun, that's the main thing. It's there's no, I guess, super right way to play. But there are advantages and disadvantages of everything. So just play how you feel convenient. And because everybody's different, everybody has a different way of imagining things, and that's the way I see it. And I just go with the flow. Talk to you guys later.